Hello, guys. My name's Nick, and I've been married to Alice for 10 years. We live in Oregon, have a house, good jobs, and most importantly, we have Liam, our 8-year-old son. My son, or at least that's what I thought. It all started with a routine checkup. I was feeling a little off, so my doctor ran some tests. Nothing serious, just the usual stuff. But then a week later, I got a call to come back in. The doctor sat me down looking a little too serious for my liking. Nick, there is something unusual in your results, he said. At first I panicked. Cancer? Heart issues? Something life-threatening? But no, it was something I never could have predicted. Your blood type and your wife's blood type do not match your son's blood type, which may mean that the son is not yours. I stared at him, completely blank. What do you mean, not yours? He began to tell me that this happens in rare cases when a child has a blood type that is not similar to the parents, but more often than not, the child's father is someone else. I actually laughed at first, like, okay, doc, but I have an 8-year-old son at home, so clearly you're wrong. But he wasn't wrong. I refused to believe it, so I had another test done, then another, and another. Different labs, different doctors, all of them said the same thing. There was no possible way I could be Liam's biological father. I can't even describe what that moment felt like. It was like my entire body shut down. My brain couldn't process it. My hands went cold. My mouth was dry. My vision blurred. I went home that night and just watched Liam as he played in the living room, completely unaware that my entire world was crumbling. My little boy, the kid I taught how to ride a bike, the kid who calls me Dad. I kept thinking, this has to be a mistake. It has to be. But deep down, I knew the truth. And if I was right, then that meant Alice had been lying to me for almost a decade, and I wasn't sure if I was more heartbroken or furious. After the initial shock, I did what any rational person would do. I convinced myself there had to be some kind of mistake. Maybe the doctors were wrong. Maybe there was some rare medical anomaly that made my case different. Maybe Liam was still my son, biologically mine, and I was just losing my mind over nothing. But then, like a sick joke, my brain started playing a highlight reel of every moment in my marriage that had ever felt off. I don't know why I hadn't noticed it before. Maybe because I never wanted to. Maybe because I trusted Alice too damn much. But now that the thought was in my head, I couldn't unsee it. The nights she was working late. The random text messages she'd quickly delete. The times she seemed weirdly tense when I walked into her room. I remember this one night, about a year after Liam was born. Alice had gone out for a drink with the girls. When she got home, she smelled different, like cologne. Not mine. I asked about it, jokingly, and she laughed it off, saying she hugged a coworker goodbye. I let it go, because I trusted her. But now I wasn't so sure. Then I started thinking about Liam himself. I always told myself that kids don't always look exactly like their parents. Genetics are weird. But now, with this new information, I found myself looking at him differently. He had none of my features. None, but he did look familiar, just not in the way I expected. One night, after Alice had gone to bed, I sat on the couch scrolling through old photos on my phone. I don't know what I was looking for, but I knew I had to find something. Then I saw it, a picture from a backyard barbecue a few summers ago. Me, Alice, Liam, and Alex, my best friend, my next door neighbor, the guy who had been in my life for over 15 years. I stared at the photo, my hands shaking. Liam didn't look like me, but he sure as hell looked like Alex. Same eyes, same nose, even the same little smirk. I felt sick. Was this even possible? Could it really be him? The guy I trusted more than anyone? I needed to know. I barely slept that night. My mind kept looping back to that picture, to every moment Alex had been around, to every damn time I had introduced him as Uncle Alex to my son. The thought made my stomach churn. I needed proof, real proof. I couldn't just go accusing my wife and best friend of the worst betrayal of my life based on a gut feeling. So the next morning, before Alice and Liam woke up, I made a decision. I ordered a DNA test. Not the casual find out where your ancestors are from kind. No, this was a real paternity test. Discreet, private, no doctor involved. I had it shipped to a P.O. box so Alice wouldn't see it. The hardest part was getting a sample from Liam without making him suspicious, but kids are messy. A used straw from his juice box, a napkin he wiped his mouth with after dinner. Things I would have never cared about before suddenly became key pieces of evidence. Once I had the samples, I sent them in and waited, and those were the longest 2 weeks of my life. I went about my days, pretending everything was normal, pretending I wasn't looking at my son differently, pretending that Alice's smile didn't make my skin crawl. The whole time I kept thinking, what if I'm wrong? What if I've gone crazy and all of this is just paranoia? What if I destroy my marriage over nothing? But deep down, I already knew the truth. When the email came in with the results, I sat in my car, parked a block away from my house, staring at my phone. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped it. I took a deep breath, opened the email, and there it was. 0% probability of paternity. Liam wasn't mine, and Alex was. I threw my phone onto the passenger seat and gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. It was real. My wife had cheated on me with my best friend, and they had kept it a secret for 8 years. I felt my world collapse, but at the same time, a new feeling crept in. Not just betrayal, not just heartbreak, rage. I wasn't just going to confront Alice. I was going to burn everything down. After reading the DNA results, I sat in my car for what felt like hours. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might explode. Liam wasn't mine. He was Alex's, my best friend, my brother in everything but blood, and Alice, my wife, had been lying to me for nearly a decade. Every I love you, every kiss, every moment we shared as a family had been built on a foundation of deception. I wanted to go straight home, shove my phone in her face, and demand the truth. But something stopped me. Liam, I looked at my hands, still trembling with rage, and thought about my son. No, not my biological son, but the kid I had raised since birth. The boy who still ran to me when he scraped his knee, who held my hand when we crossed the street, who called me dad without a second thought. If I walked in there guns blazing, screaming about DNA tests and betrayals, what would happen to him? No, I had to be smarter. I had to be sure of everything before I made my move. So I started watching Alice. Not in a paranoid tinfoil hat way, but in a way I probably should have been doing for years. And sure enough, the signs were there. She was tense, always checking her phone. Her mood would shift suddenly, like she was on edge, like she knew something was coming. She tried to act normal, but I saw through it now. The forced smiles, the casual questions about my day, it was all an act. Then I noticed something else. Whenever I mentioned Alex, even just casually, her whole body stiffened for a fraction of a second. Just enough that if I hadn't been paying attention, I wouldn't have caught it. They both knew. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just some affair that happened once and got swept under the rug. This was planned. For years, they had been keeping this secret from me, sitting across from me at dinner, laughing at my jokes, celebrating holidays together, all while knowing that Liam was his son. I needed more than just a test result. I needed everything. So I started digging. I went through Alice's phone when she was in the shower, not just her messages, but her deleted ones. I checked old emails, looked for any trace of their affair, and I found it. A single email from 8 years ago, from Alice to Alex. It worked. He doesn't suspect a thing. I clenched my jaw so hard I thought my teeth might crack. This wasn't just cheating. This was calculated. I wasn't just some fool who got betrayed. I was the punchline to their fucking joke. And now, it was my turn to play the game. I barely slept that night. I kept staring at the ceiling, my mind racing, replaying every single moment over the past 8 years. Every time Alice smiled at me, every time Alex laughed with me over a beer, every time I looked at Liam and told myself he was mine, it had all been a fucking lie. I needed to confront her. I couldn't keep pretending. The rage inside me was boiling over, and if I didn't get the truth out of her now, I was going to explode. So the next morning, I waited. I sat at the kitchen table, drinking coffee, acting like it was just another normal day. But inside, I was ready for war. Alice walked in, still in her pajamas, rubbing the sleep from her eyes. "Morning, babe," she mumbled, heading toward the coffee maker. I didn't say anything. I just watched her. She must have sensed something was off because she hesitated, turning to look at me. "You okay?" I took a slow sip of my coffee and set the mug down. "Are you?" Her eyes flickered with something... confusion? Maybe fear? "What do you mean?" she asked, forcing a small smile. I tilted my head. "I mean, is there anything you want to tell me, Alice?" That's when I saw it. The flash of panic in her eyes. It was quick, so quick that if I hadn't been looking for it, I might have missed it. But I saw it. She tried to recover, laughing softly. "Nick, you're acting weird. Did something happen?" I leaned forward, resting my arms on the table. "You tell me." The room was so silent I could hear the faint ticking of the wall clock. Alice shifted uncomfortably. "Nick, what's going on?" I pulled out my phone and opened the email. The one she had sent to Alex 8 years ago. The one that read, "It worked. He doesn't suspect a thing." I turned the screen toward her. "Explain this." Her face went white. For a moment, she just froze, like a deer caught in headlights. Then, just as quickly, she tried to compose herself. "Where'd you get that?" she asked, her voice shaky. Doesn't matter, I said, my voice cold. What does it mean? Alice let out a breath, rubbing her forehead like she suddenly had a headache. Nick, I don't know what you think you found, but don't, I interrupted. Don't bullshit me, don't lie, just fucking tell me the truth. She swallowed hard, her hands gripping the counter behind her. Nick, I know what you found out. My stomach twisted. What do you mean? I asked, my voice dangerously low. She took a deep breath, avoiding my eyes. I know about the DNA test. I know you found out that Liam isn't yours. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. She knew. She had known that I was unraveling the truth, and yet she said nothing. She just kept smiling, kept pretending. And you didn't think to fucking tell me? I spat, my hands shaking. She finally met my gaze, tears forming in her eyes. I didn't know how. I stood up so fast the chair scraped against the floor. Try now, I said through gritted teeth. Alice let out a shaky breath. Nick, you don't know the whole story. You don't know why Liam isn't yours. My entire body tensed. Then tell me. She bit her lip, hesitating, then finally she whispered, It wasn't a betrayal, Nick. It was a deal. I froze. A deal? I repeated. She nodded slowly. You need to know the truth. I clenched my fists, then start talking. I stood there, gripping the edge of the table so hard my fingers went numb. A deal? I repeated, my voice cold. What the hell do you mean by that, Alice? She wiped at her face, her tears falling freely now, but I wasn't falling for it, not anymore. She took a shaky breath. Nick, you have to understand. I never wanted to hurt you. I clenched my jaw, then start talking. Alice looked away for a second, like she was bracing herself. Then she met my gaze. When we were trying to have a baby, and the doctors told you that you might be infertile, I panicked. I swallowed hard, my mind already racing. I knew how much you wanted to be a father, she continued, her voice shaking. I knew what that diagnosis did to you, the way you stopped talking about the future, the way you looked at other dads and thought you'd never have that. I didn't say anything. I remembered that time. It had been hell, but none of that excused what she had done. I made a decision, she whispered, looking down. I wanted to give us a family, Nick, so I asked Alex to help. The words hit me like a sledgehammer. Help? I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. She nodded, still avoiding my gaze. We made an agreement. Just once. He would get me pregnant and I would never tell you, because I knew if you found out it would destroy you. My whole body felt like it was on fire. You decided for me, I spat. You took my choice away and gave it to him. I did it for you, she cried, her hands shaking. I did it so you could be a father. I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. He fucked my best friend, lied to my face for 8 years, and let me raise his kid thinking he was mine. And you're standing here telling me you did it for me? She sobbed harder now, her whole body trembling. Nick, please, don't, I snapped, cutting her off. I turned away, running my hands through my hair, my mind racing. This wasn't just cheating. This was calculated. They had planned this. And the worst part? She didn't even think she had done something wrong. She genuinely believed she had saved me from something, that taking away my right to choose was better than facing the truth together. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, but the rage inside me was boiling over. And Alex? I asked, my voice dangerously low. What was in it for him? Alice wiped her eyes, her lip trembling. He wanted to help. I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my palms. That's bullshit, I snapped. You don't just help someone like that. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew he was taking my place. Alice opened her mouth to argue, but I held up a hand. I'm done listening to your excuses. I turned to leave, grabbing my keys. Where are you going? She asked, panicked. I didn't answer, because in that moment, I realized something that didn't sit right. The tests. I hadn't thought about them since that day. I had trusted them. But now I wasn't so sure, and if I was right, if something else had been going on, then this wasn't just about Alice's betrayal. This was about something much bigger. I drove for hours, my hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. My mind was a whirlwind of rage, betrayal, and a deep, gnawing suspicion that I couldn't shake. Alice had admitted it. She had slept with Alex. She had chosen to let another man father our child behind my back, all because she believed I couldn't do it myself. But something still didn't make sense. The test results. It had been one test, done 10 years ago. I had never questioned it because, well, why would I? It came from a doctor. And at the time, I was too devastated to dig deeper. But now I had every reason to. I pulled into an old gas station, parking in the far corner where no one could see me. I leaned forward, resting my forehead against the steering wheel, trying to catch my breath. Then I did something I should have done years ago. I called the clinic. I dug through my email, found the name of the hospital where I had received my fertility results, and dialed their number. A woman answered on the second ring. "Good afternoon, Clearwater Medical. How can I help you?" I cleared my throat, trying to steady my voice. "Yeah, hi. My name is Nick Carter. I had some fertility tests done about 10 years ago, and I was wondering if I could get a copy of my records." 10 years? She asked, surprised. "That's quite a long time. Let me check." I could hear her typing, searching. Then she said something that sent a chill down my spine. "I'm sorry, sir. There's no record of you ever receiving a fertility test at our clinic." I blinked. "That's impossible. I got my results from you guys. I remember sitting in the office talking to the doctor." "I understand that, sir, but I am looking at your file now, and there's nothing about a fertility test here." I felt my stomach twist. "Is the doctor still there?" I asked. "The one who diagnosed me?" There was a long pause. "Dr. Morgan?" she said hesitantly. "Yeah, Dr. Morgan? Can I speak with him?" Another silence. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. "Dr. Morgan hasn't worked here for over 6 years. He left after a scandal involving falsified medical records." The words barely registered. "Falsified medical records?" I repeated numbly. "Yes, sir. There were allegations that he had altered patient results, switched information, created false diagnoses. We had to reopen a lot of old cases because of it." And see if man, I couldn't breathe. My entire world tilted on its axis. The test results were fake. I had been lied to. And suddenly, everything clicked into place. Alex had been there when I got the results. He was the one who comforted Alice, who reassured her, who was conveniently around when she was panicking about my supposed infertility. Had he known? Had he done something to make sure those test results were switched? What? Had this entire thing, my wife sleeping with him, my son being his, been some kind of elaborate setup? I felt the rage surge inside me again, stronger than before. I wasn't just a victim of an affair. I had been played, and now I was going to find out the truth, no matter what it took. I sat in my car, gripping my phone so tightly my fingers ached. My pulse was hammering in my ears, my breath coming in short, ragged gasps. The fertility test had been faked. Dr. Morgan had altered patient records, lied, and now he was gone, disappeared after a scandal involving falsified medical results. Had I been one of his victims, or had this been something more personal? I needed answers. I did a quick search online trying to find any trace of Dr. Morgan. Or the hospital records confirmed that he had left the practice 6 years ago, but aside from a few local news articles about the scandal, there was nothing. No social media, no contact information, no trace of where he had gone. But one thing stood out, an article from 2017, former Clearwater medical doctor under investigation for medical fraud, dozens of cases reopened after accusations of test result tampering. The accusations had come from multiple patients, but no charges had ever been filed. He had left town before anything stuck. I scrolled down the article, searching for names, and then there it was. One of the complaints came from a man named Alex Foster, my best friend, the same man who had fathered my son. My vision went blurry with rage. I knew Alex had been around during that time. I knew he had comforted Alice when we thought we couldn't have kids. But now I had proof he was connected to the very doctor who gave me the fake results. This wasn't just some tragic accident. This wasn't Alice making a choice on her own. This had been planned. Had Alex paid him off, threatened him, or had they worked together to manipulate the results? I didn't know yet, but I was about to find out, because now I wasn't just hunting for the truth. I was hunting for revenge. I spent the rest of the night searching for Dr. Morgan. If he had disappeared after the scandal, I needed to know where he went and why. If Alex's name was tied to him, then there was no doubt in my mind this wasn't just some mistake. This was a setup. By who, though? Alice? Alex? Both of them? I wasn't going to stop until I had answers. It took a few hours of digging, but I finally found something. A medical forum where former patients had been trying to track Dr. Morgan's whereabouts. Someone had posted a link in the comments. Last I heard, he moved out of state. Some say he changed his name, but a few people swear they saw him working at a clinic in Nevada. I grabbed my keys. I didn't care if I had to drive across the entire damn country. I was going to find him. I took a last-minute flight to Nevada. I wasn't even thinking straight anymore, just running on pure rage and adrenaline. If Dr. Morgan was still working anywhere, I'd find him, and I did. After 2 days of searching, I finally tracked him down to a small private clinic on the outskirts of Reno. It wasn't listed under his name, but when I walked in and saw him standing behind the front desk, I knew it was him. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside me before I ripped him apart right there. Instead, I walked up to the counter and said, "I need to speak with Dr. Morgan. It's about a patient file from 10 years ago." His face went pale. That was all I needed to see. We ended up in a private office. Morgan kept looking over his shoulder like he was scared, like he thought I had come here to kill him. "I don't know what you think I did," he started. I slammed my hands on the desk. "Don't play stupid. You gave me a fake fertility diagnosis 10 years ago. Why?" His eyes darted around the room like he was debating whether to lie or not. He swallowed hard. "I don't remember." I leaned in, my voice low. "Alex Foster." That got him. His entire body tensed, his hands gripping the desk. "I know you switched my results," I said through clenched teeth. "I just want to know why." He let out a slow breath, rubbing his temples. Then finally, he cracked. "Look," he muttered, "I didn't have a choice. Someone came to me, offered me money. A lot of money. All I had to do was swap out one set of results for another." My stomach dropped. "Who paid you?" He hesitated. "Was it Alex?" I pressed. Dr. Morgan exhaled sharply. "Yes." It felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. Alex hadn't just stepped in to help Alice after my so-called infertility. He had orchestrated the entire thing. He had PAD to have my results switched. He had set this up before Alice ever even thought about sleeping with him. And that meant only one thing. He had been planning to take my life from the very beginning. I sat there staring at Dr. Morgan, my entire body numb. Alex had paid him. This wasn't some accident. It wasn't Alice making a hard choice to give us a family. It wasn't fate or misfortune or bad luck. It was a setup from the very beginning. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. "How much?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. Dr. Morgan swallowed. "What? How much did he pay you to destroy my life?" Morgan rubbed his temples, looking like he regretted every choice that had brought him to this moment. It wasn't just about money. He told me he needed to help a friend, that his best friend was struggling, and that if I could just remove the problem, everyone would be happier in the long run. "Remove the problem?" I repeated, my blood boiling. "You mean me?" Morgan nodded. "He told me you'd never be able to handle the truth, that you'd break if you found out you couldn't have kids. He said he was doing you a favor by stepping in." I nearly flipped the damn desk over. "He didn't step in. He took over my fucking life." Morgan held up his hands. "Look, I didn't know the full story. I just did what he asked. I switched your test results with someone else's. That's it." "Whose results did you switch them with?" He shook his head. "No idea. It was just a file lying around. Some random guy who actually wasn't personal. Because that random test result had turned my entire world into a lie." "And Alice?" I asked, forcing myself to breathe. "Did she know?" Dr. Morgan shook his head. "No. As far as I know, Alex never told her." I exhaled slowly. So, Alice had thought she was making a choice to give me a child, but in reality, she had been manipulated into it. She had been just another piece of Alex's sick little game. I stood up, my mind racing. "Where is he now?" I asked. Morgan looked up at me. "Alex?" "Yeah," I said, my voice dangerously low. "Because the next time I see him, he's going to tell me the truth. Or I'll make him." Morgan hesitated, then let out a sigh. "Last I heard, he's still right where you left him, living his perfect little life." The rage in my chest turned ice cold. Alex was out there, still smiling, still pretending to be my best friend, still acting like the good guy, and all this time he had been sitting comfortably, knowing he had gotten away with it. Well, that was about to change, because now it was my turn to play the game. By the time I got back home, I wasn't even thinking straight. My entire body was running on pure rage, and the only thing on my mind was one person, Alex. He had planned this from the beginning. He had stolen my life, my family, my fatherhood, all while looking me in the eye and calling me his best friend. And he thought he had won. Not anymore. I parked a block away from his house. I needed a second to breathe, to think, to figure out how I was going to confront him without ripping his head off. Because make no mistake, I wanted to hurt him. I got out of the car and walked up his driveway, my fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. I didn't bother knocking. I just tried the door. Unlocked. Arrogant son of a bitch. I stepped inside and there he was. Alex. Sitting on his couch, sipping a beer like it was just another night. He looked up and smiled when he saw me. Nick. Hey man, you look like hell. You okay? I nearly laughed. He was still playing his role. I took a slow step forward, my whole body tense. Cut the shit, Alex. His expression flickered for just a second, a split second of realization. Then, just as fast, it was gone. Whoa, what's going on? He asked, still pretending to be confused. I pulled out my phone, opened the email from Dr. Morgan, and threw it onto the coffee table in front of him. He's paid off a doctor to fake my infertility results. Alex's entire body went still. For the first time since I had known him, he didn't have a bullshit excuse ready to go. I don't know what you're talking about, he finally said. I grabbed the front of his shirt and shoved him back against the couch. Don't fucking lie to me! His beer crashed to the floor. His eyes flickered with something I never thought I'd see from him. Fear. I leaned in closer, my voice a low growl. You switched my test results. You made Alice think I was infertile so you could step in, so you could take my place. And you sat there all these years watching me raise your son, laughing behind my back. He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. Nick, listen. No, you listen, I roared. I trusted you. I let you into my home. And this whole time you were fucking planning this? Why, Alex? Why? And then he smirked. That fucking smirk. Because I only took what was mine to begin with, he said calmly. The words hit me like a freight train. I took a step back, disgusted. Yours? I repeated, my voice hollow. He sat up, fixing his shirt like nothing had happened. Think about it, Nick. I've always been there. I was the one Alice confided in. I was the one who supported her when she was falling apart. She came to me when she thought you couldn't give her what she wanted. He leaned forward, his smirk growing. Face it, man, you were just a placeholder. I lost it. I punched him so hard he fell back onto the couch, clutching his jaw. You think you won? I hissed. You think this is over? He wiped the blood from his lip, still smiling. It already is, buddy. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down, because I had one final move left. I turned to leave, but before I walked out, I gave him one last look. Enjoy this while it lasts, Alex, because I'm going to destroy you. His smirk finally faded. Because he knew? I meant every single word, and I had nothing left to lose. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my car, staring at the dashboard, my mind racing with every possible way I could ruin Alex's life. I wanted to hit him again. I wanted to do worse, but violence wouldn't be enough. No, he needed to lose everything, just like he had stolen everything from me. So I made a plan. First thing in the morning, I went home. Alice was sitting at the kitchen table, red-eyed, looking like she hadn't slept either. The moment she saw me, she opened her mouth to speak, but I held up my hand. Sit down, I said coldly. She hesitated, then obeyed. I pulled out my phone, found the recording I had made of my conversation with Dr. Morgan, and pressed play. I watched as her face crumbled. When she heard the doctor admit that Alex had paid him off, when she heard that I had never been infertile, when she heard that her entire decision to sleep with Alex had been based on a lie, her hands flew to her mouth. Oh my God, she whispered. Oh my God, Nick, I didn't know. I just stared at her. She sobbed, breaking down right there at the table, but I didn't care. You let him into our home, I said, my voice shaking with rage. You let him sit at my table. You let him be part of my life while he was playing me. And now you expect me to feel bad for you? She shook her head, panicked. I swear I thought I was doing the right thing, if I had known. But you didn't know, Alice. I cut her off. And that's the problem. You made a life-changing decision behind my back, and you didn't even consider the possibility that you were being played. She sobbed harder, but I didn't stick around to watch. I was done with her. I went straight to a lawyer. I handed over everything. The DNA test results, the recording of Dr. Morgan, the email Alice had sent to Alex 8 years ago. You want full custody? The lawyer asked. Damn right I do, I said, because Liam was my son. Maybe not by blood, but I had raised him, loved him, taught him how to ride a bike, read him bedtime stories. Alex didn't get to swoop in and take that away. The lawyer nodded. With this kind of evidence, you'll have a strong case. Good. The next part, that was personal. I made copies of everything. The recording, the emails, the proof of Alex's involvement in the falsified medical records. And then I sent it to his employer, his wife, his parents, his entire goddamn world. And just like that, Alex's perfect little life came crashing down. I heard through mutual friends that his company fired him. that his wife left him, taking their kids with her, that his parents disowned him, disgusted by what he had done. I didn't feel bad, not one bit. 2 weeks later, I was packing up my things when I heard a knock at the door. It was Alice. She looked like hell. Puffy eyes, dark circles, like she hadn't stopped crying since I left. "Nick," she whispered, "please, I need to fix this." I sighed, gripping the door frame. "Alice, there is no fixing this." She shook her head. "Liam needs us." "Liam will be fine," I interrupted. "But us? We're done." She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "You made your choice, Alice. Now you have to live with it." Her face crumpled, and I saw it in her eyes. Realization. She had lost me forever. And honestly, it felt good. I shut the door, and I didn't look back. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. I got full custody of Liam. As for Alex, last I heard, he was jobless, broke, and alone. Fitting, isn't it? Because he thought he had won. But in the end, I was the one who walked away free. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Tell me what you think about that story. Have a good day, and bye.